everyone, it's Amanda. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be another one of my video doodle tutorials where I show you the back to basics of drawing something. And today's specific something is lavender. Now, if you haven't watched my May Plan With Me and bullet journal setup that kind of goes along with this video, I'll be sure to link it in the cards as well as in the description box below. But the theme for this month was lavender, which is why we're going to be doing that today. And hopefully this will help you out with all of your lavender floral doodles. I actually do have a question that hopefully you guys can help me out with. Would you guys prefer that I only do a mini doodle tutorial included in the Plan With Me video so that it's all together? Or do you like these more in-depth doodle tutorials where I show you guys the step-by-step, the basics, and I also show you guys a bunch of different variations? Let me know which ones you guys prefer. Obviously, if I were to include it in the Plan With Me, it would be a lot more brief just for time's sake, and it wouldn't be as detailed. But you can let me know in the comments which one you prefer. Include it in the Plan With Me or separate and more detailed. I'm going to stop blabbing, so grab a piece of paper and pencil and let's get doodling. I'm going to start off by showing you the various types of petal shapes that you're going to need to know in order to draw lavender, or at least the type of lavender that I draw. The first two are variations on the simple teardrop shape petal. So what you're going to need to do is attach two of these teardrop shapes at the point, kind of like a little heart shape, but you can change it up depending on the direction that these sprout out. Another variation of this is adding one more in the center, so it almost is like a closed flower shape, more circular. And then this one it's a bit more abstract, but the petal shapes at the top end up looking flatter and a bit more bumpy. And then finally, I have this one that kind of looks like a vase. Again, very abstract. These ones are more loose. You don't need to be very exact with it. But these are pretty much all of the petal shapes that I do when I am drawing lavender. Here you'll see I'm kind of showing you guys the different directions that the petals are going in with these arrows. I think these arrows really showcase how each of these petal shapes differ a little bit from each other. Now that you know all the petal shapes, it's time to put it all together. There's a couple different ways you can do it. With the very simple lavender, you can just stack the simple teardrop lavender shapes together, whether that's closer together or farther apart. You'll see I'm showing you an example here of what it looks like when they're more spaced out versus stacked all on top of each other. Or you can do the one with the 3 petal, again stacked farther apart or closer together, or a bit of both depending on what you like better. But my personal favorite is when I mix all 5 of them together. I slowed it down so you can really see what I'm doing, but you'll see I switch between these simple heart-shaped, teardrop-shaped petals from the flatter one, a bit more abstract, and I feel like this makes it look a lot more floral because in real life, florals aren't perfect. They're not an exact pattern or a replica of each other. So when you switch all of these up, it gives it a more natural sketch-like appearance. So now I'm showing you the more in-depth version. The lavender shades that I'm using are the 620 and 603 Tombow dual brush pens, and I actually like to do the markers before I do the fine liners just because I don't want to smudge any of the fine liners. And then I loosely stack and color in some rough petal shapes on top of the line. And I'm not doing this in any sort of pattern or formula. I kind of just imagine what the petals I want to look like are, and then I fill those in with the color. And then later I'm going to go in over top with the fine liner. And doing the colored marker beforehand also helps to keep the flowers looking more natural and organic because there's no way that any of them are going to end up looking the same. And I also just kind of follow the outline of the marker sometimes. It just depends, but you'll see I also throw in a couple little oval shapes, some extra lines to add a bit more movement. To finish things off, I like to add a couple little leaves at the bottom and shade them in, and my favorite thing to do is add these little circles all around it. It kind of represents pollen. I think it just pulls everything together. Oh, and then I also finish it off by adding a couple extra lines and ovals just to make everything look a bit more detailed. Here you'll see a sped up version of pretty much the exact cover page that I did for my May Plan With Me, and you'll see that I did those exact same techniques, starting off with the wavy lines. I like to start off with a pencil, and then going in with the color, whether that's paint or color pencils or markers. For me, it's markers, and I like to do the rough, loose petal shapes before I do the fine liner. I also, for this specific color page, used 2 different shades of lavender just because there was so much happening that I thought that the difference of lavenders would add a little bit of visual interest. And then finally, finishing it off with outlining the petal shapes. Again, referring back to those 5 main petal shapes, you'll see that pretty much all the petals that I do kind of derive from that. They might not be exact, but it's pretty much the exact same. And just making sure to keep the things loose and switching things up a lot just so that it doesn't look as static as, let's say, using all of the same petal shapes. And then finally, my favorite part, which is the finishing touches, so adding the leaves. I don't do that many leaves because this particular design is showcasing more of the tops of the lavender rather than the entire field, so they're not as big or as frequent. And then, of course, the little dots that I like to call the fairy dust. Love it. I just can't get enough of them. Okay, so that was the tutorial on how I drew lavender for my May bullet journal setup, but I love showing you guys different options and versions that you can play around with. This particular one, the petal shapes are all pretty much the same, but I spaced them out a bit more, added larger leaves just to make it look a bit different. This one is more of an abstract cartoony version. I changed up the sizes of the teardrop shapes and kind of alternated them a little bit. You can also play around with adding different branches, not just doing a single sprout of lavender. Another thing that I love doing is a bouquet of lavender, so I start out with a bunch of different lines and then I kind of just scribble a bunch of petals really fast at the top. You don't need to be extremely exact for this one. For this particular style of illustration, I like it better when it looks a bit loose and sketchier. This version is another interesting version because there's actually no black outlines on the petals. I'm only using the marker for the petals. Oh yeah, just wanted to fill it in to showcase the various versions of the lavender. And then finally, another thing you can play around with is watercolor. I think the relaxing nature of lavender kind of lends itself to watercolor. There's a lot of things you can play around with, pooling the watercolor so that there's some darker spots. You can either leave it unoutlined like I've done there, or you can wait for it to dry and add the outlines. I think that adds a nice cool field illustration vibe to it, but pretty much the steps are the same as the previous stuff that I told you. But anyways, those are all of my different versions of lavender. Alright everyone, so now you should all be well versed in drawing lavender. I can't wait to see what y'all come up with. If you haven't checked out the May plan with me and bullet journal setup that went along with this video, I'm going to link it in the cards as well as in the description box below. And if you're craving some more art, doodle, bullet journal inspiration, be sure to go follow me on my Instagram at AmandaRachLee. We have a ton of fun over there. We have weekly Sunday live streams. I post a ton of pictures, so make sure you go check that out if you don't want to miss the fun. But anyways, keep doodling and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye everyone!